Hey everyone, Brian Mobley with Total Fit. So today we're going to go over something in great detail. It needs to be going over in great detail, and that's squats. So squats are something that you can really injure yourself badly on if you do them incorrectly. And I see a lot of people doing squats in a way that's not only not safe, but just incorrect. And so if you want to get the most out of a squat, you got to do it correctly, and it takes practice, and it takes some discipline, and it takes some step-by-step approach that's what we're going to go through today. So a couple things. So with squatting, you want to make sure that you are always thinking about your safety and you're not doing something that you're not ready to do yet. And usually that has to do with how flexible you are. So we're going to go over that part as well. So nothing is more technical, nothing is more satisfying than doing a squat in the gym. It's the toughest exercise out there in terms of getting it right, and it can be mastered. So if you'll follow along with what I'm telling you, you'll learn exactly how to do this squat and make sure you get the most out of it and make sure that it's effective and safe. All right, so I want to go over the elemental steps of doing a squat. And this is basically to determine whether or not you're actually ready to do a full squat or a parallel squat. So usually squats are a function of the flexibility of your leg muscles. Usually it's either the quadricep or your calf muscle, and I see it more in the calves. Some of my older clients are so stiff in their quadriceps that they can't really go down to a squat position. But more commonly, people don't have very much flexibility in their calf. So, if you're hanging on something, you should really be able to, dip your calves down really low. Like, let's pretend I had something under my foot, so you can really hang those calves down low. So here's a little test about how low you should go on a squat. So we're coming down. Watch my feet, okay? So I'm just normal shoulder width apart, nothing fancy. As you come down, my heel never comes up, all right? So that's an important part of a squat, that your heels are on the floor the whole time. If you start going down and you want to tip up on your toes like this, you probably don't have the flexibility in your calves to go to a full squat like the one I'm going to show you. So you need to work on stretching your calves out before you start attempting those things, because you don't want to roll forward up on your knees. It's where you're going to hurt them, or you don't want to roll up forward on the balls of your feet because it injures your knees. So that's a no-no. If you can't do this, work on that first, okay? So if you're going to start squatting and you want to do it right, come down to a point where your heels want to come up. That's as far as you should go until you start getting the flexibility in your calves or your quads, okay? So that's a normal squat. Okay, that's the position, that's basically the exercise. So we're gonna do it with some weight as well, but you get the idea. So if you can't get in this position, you're not ready to go for a full parallel squat. Just work on getting the limberness or the flexibility in your calves or your quads. That's the first step. If you're rolling up on your feet, that's a big no-no. That's really about all you need to know in terms of the beginning stages of doing a squat. So that's where we're gonna go. Next, we're gonna work on the actual exercise itself. So here's a couple things about doing the actual exercise. There's a lot to it. And in no specific order, and I may start thinking of new things to add as I go along, but in no specific order. First thing you want to have is the bar set at a height that's at a comfortable height for you. You don't want to get under a bar and be bent over and so on. This bar is actually slightly low for me, to be honest. I'd like it to be a little bit higher, but the next peg up is too high. It's too hard to take it off. So the way this thing is set up, this is about the closest that I can get. So you just don't want the bar to be so low that it's hard for you to take it off the rack, or you're bending over a lot to do that. Another thing is what I call addressing the bar. So at any bar, there's these little indexing marks, and they're just equidistant marks from the center of the bar. And you want to grab those evenly. Whatever you're going to do, you don't want to grab one here and one there, because you're going to want to come up the middle of the bar like this in between your shoulders, and you're not centered on the bar. So if you can get your fingers on the indexing marks wherever they're comfortable, and I like them a little close, honestly, but wherever they're comfortable, make them the same on both sides, okay? So make sure you got your indexing marks under the same finger on both sides. Then you address the bar. And the reason that that's important is you want the bar to be at the center of your back, basically, or the center of your spine. If you have your hands offset, you'll have a tendency to be too far to the left or too far to the right on the bar, and it'll be out of balance. So that's the first thing. So address the bar. Then when you get under the bar, this is more technical than you might think, get up under. You should really stand with both feet together, okay? Not this, okay? And go straight up with the bar, all right? Now, another thing about this is this bar, you can roll it down your back more than you think. It seems like that the most comfortable place to have it is up high, but you can roll it down low, and it'll help you in one sense that I'll get to in a minute, and that's basically how you step down. So When you're in this position, you got your hands nice and firm on the bar, you want to stick your butt out, and that's kind of something that people don't talk about a whole lot, but your back needs to be really tightly arched and your butt needs to be like extended in a way that's kind of unnatural. And the reason for that is you want to lock your spine so it's not rolling around as you go down doing your squat. The heavier you do your squat, the more important that's going to be. Another thing is when you set your feet, whatever width that you decide to set them, I just like a normal shoulder width like this. You should set your feet firmly on the ground basically and grip with your toes down against your soles of your feet firmly. And then flex your legs. So the reason for the flexing of the legs thing is people have a tendency when they do their squat to, if they don't flex their legs, they fall for about the first 10 or 15% of the exercise. If you flex your quads in advance, you can have a nice, clean, firm squat the whole way. Don't fall and then stop the deceleration. That's very common when people are squatting. So we're going to start from the beginning on that. So addressing the bar, got my finger on the indexing mark. I'm up the center. You'll naturally go up the middle if you do it this way. Up the middle, set your feet, come off the rack, step back, butt out, legs firm, and then you're ready to squat. Down we go. Boom. Boom. Now, you can't see this in this angle, but we're going to change the angles and show you racking. I did put my foot back on that one, but only because the weight's light. So another thing that I like to show you from a different angle is how your legs should be moving as you squat. So whatever direction your feet are pointing is the direction that your quads should be going. These are your quads. So you don't want to have your feet like this and going like that. You want your legs to go over your feet, okay? No matter what. Your feet are out like this, out your legs go, okay? If you want it like this, even though it's weird, it would be like that. So I like kind of a natural stance like this, quads over the feet. All right, so that's the way you do that. So in addition, a lot of times you'll see people who, at the bottom of their squat, they'll start doing funny things with their knees, and it's really common. So in your leg, there's 4 different muscles. This one's called the vastus medialis. This one's called the vastus lateralis. And the bigger muscle is this outer one, but people tend to lean on this muscle a little bit more. So what will happen is you're doing your squat, they come down, roll their knees in, okay? That's because we feel confident with this muscle for some reason. But when you're squatting, you should always think about the energy is coming from the side of my legs, from the outer side. That'll keep you going straight. So always think I'm pushing from here. I'm pushing from here, okay? That's the way, from here, this muscle here. If you push from that side, you'll come up nice and straight. Another thing too is people tend to favor their I don't know what you call it, the leg that's their primary leg, like the one that you kick a ball with. And so they'll come down and shift to that side. So that's another thing you gotta avoid. Come down and shift to the strong leg. It's very subtle, but what you can do about that is just think at the bottom of the movement, I'm gonna go with my weak leg. So I'm starting the movement with my weak side. I come down and sort of in your mind, I'm starting it up with this. I'm pushing up with that. So I'm coming down, start with the weak side, come up, okay? So boom. Boom, boom. Okay, so those are the basic things about a squat. But what I'd like to talk to you also about is some pitfalls about squatting. So one of the big ones is, as I talked about earlier, is coming down, getting on the balls of your feet. You gotta avoid that at all costs. If you're getting up on the balls of your feet, you need to just slow it down, don't go so deep. Another thing is, I see a lot of people who are now putting stops under their butts, like stools, benches, things like that. There's no good reason to do that. You don't need to come down and sit on a bench and come up, okay? So, and by the way, all this leg movement does me get a little bit out of breath, so forgive me. Anyway, so those are things you want to avoid. And then, I'm trying to think, other things that are important. The rolling of the knees, use your strong muscles, keep your butt out, keep your feet flat. Oh, I said in no specific order, this is another one. So, when you're coming up on your squat, the energy should always come from your heel, okay? Not the ball of your foot, the heel. So think about just driving your heels into the ground. Boom, pushing your heels. If you do that, you won't lean so far forward. And that's another thing that people tend to do. They don't feel confident about the bar placement, so they tend to roll forward, getting on the balls of their feet. You have to go back pretty far before the bar will like roll off of your back. So get confident about having a little bit further back. So I think that those are the main things that you need to do on a squat. So I think I'm gonna have my student do some squats for you. So I've worked with Fanny for a long time. You're gonna meet her in just a second. Fanny and I have been doing a lot of squats now for probably a year, and she started out pretty miserable at squats. Now she's pretty good at it. So I'm gonna let her do them so I'm not so out of breath when I'm talking to you. All right, so now we're gonna have my super athlete, Fanny, who has been working out with me for about a year now. And just a little backstory on Fanny. She worked with me on boot camps for a long time and then graduated into coming to the gym. And although Fanny has always been trim, she wasn't real muscly like she's these days. So she's really made a lot of progress in the last year. One of the things she really wanted to focus on was her leg development, and we do a lot of squats, and she's become very skilled at doing squats and had a lot of the pitfalls that I mentioned earlier, buckling her knees, switching to her strong side. She doesn't really do those things very much anymore unless she's getting really tired. And one other thing I wanted to show you on a squat that you can only do with 2 people is how to spot someone correctly on a squat, because you can hurt somebody really badly if you spot them incorrectly, and it's a little bit provocative to some people how the technique is. But this is the right way to spot someone, which we're going to go through that. So first, I'm going to have Fanny do a few squats, and I'm going to show you some of the things that she's doing right and why they need to be done that way, and then I'm going to spot her for a few reps. So probably get like 5 reps here. So one thing I was going to mention straight off, Fanny's comfortable rolling this bar down. And if you can, but if you're comfortable rolling the bar down your back a little bit, it's easier to do a squat. So she's pretty comfortable about rolling that bar down a little bit farther than what might seem natural, but you can roll that bar down pretty far before it'll like fall off your back. It's more than you might think. So, all right, let's squat. There you go. So Fanny's going all the way parallel, feet are on the floor. She used to have a lot of trouble with that, by the way. Legs straight ahead, going right over her feet. Not shifting one side or the other. Straight up and down. Super clean. Beautiful. This is another thing too. The tempo is important on a squat, and she's actually got a nice tempo working here. So you can come to the top of a squat. You're probably gonna get pooped, so let me spot you now and then we'll go back. So this is the right way to spot somebody. This is a little bit unusual, but you wanna grab them basically around the ribs and pull someone up by the ribs, okay? So it's a little bit weird because, especially working out with a girl, because you don't wanna have your hand slide up a little too far on accident. So that's how you do it. You grab someone around the ribs and pull them up at the base. Usually people are gonna have trouble at the bottom. So that's where you gotta keep your hands tight and close. Boom, that's it. Let's go ahead and rack it. You're gonna get too tired. All right, so Fanny just did a great demonstration on how to do these squats correctly. She's just very, very accomplished at them these days, so I'm really proud of her. She's done a lot in terms of her squatting skills, and she started off pretty sloppy at first, so thank you very much for that. So just to finish, I gave you most of the important points regarding a squat. And just be careful not to go too heavy on your weights too fast. You can easily hurt your knees. So that's another thing you need to be really careful about on a squat. And if you practice them, they're one of these exercises that you just really have to practice. It's like a golf swing or something like that. It's not going to come naturally on the first day. It feels unusual to roll the bar down, your back a little bit further. It feels unusual to push from your heels. Those are things that are going to take a little bit of time to develop. So don't be afraid of doing them. There's nothing better for your body in a general sense than squats. It's the granddaddy of all exercises. So you can do a lot in terms of building back strength, butt strength, quad strength, ab strength. I mean, it's just an excellent exercise overall. So I hope that helps you guys. There's a lot to it. If you have any questions, you're welcome to reach out to me. I'm on Instagram at #TotalFitHouston. You can also find me on Facebook at Brian, B-R-I-A-N, Mobley, M-O-B-L-E-Y. This is what I do. I've been in the gym for over 30 years, and I'm really, really accomplished at squatting. So if I can help you more with that, please feel free to reach out.